This is the magicwordpodcast.com.
Hello, this is Scott Wells for the magicwordpodcast.com. And this week we're going to take a break between Magic Convention reports and get back to what we have been about, and that is doing some conversations with conjurers and chatting with some friends, and today is no exception. We're going to be picking up where we left off when we were last talking with Rocco, and now we're going to be talking with Lorenzo Clark today. And he's got some fabulous stories he's going to share with us today in this episode. But before we get started, I want to let you know that this episode is brought to you by the Friends of the Magic Word. And I want to welcome our newest friend, Wayne Houchin. Thank you, Wayne. I appreciate your financial donation to help the Magic Word continue to be on the air or online, I guess, basically, and staying in digital perpetuity. I thank you very much for your support. And also, while I was at the Magic Get-Together and also at FISM, a lot of things were happening, and I also had received some donations while I was there or while I was gone from Michael Trix, from Jerry Costello, and from Bill Smith and Phil Lackerley. Thank you guys very much for your ongoing support. I appreciate those additional donations that you make, whether it comes through PayPal, whether it comes through just cash donations, or however. So thank you guys. That definitely goes towards helping to make this podcast continue to go and to grow. So if you're interested in finding out how that you can join these fine gentlemen and ladies and gentlemen, we have many women who are part of this as well, who are friends of the Magic Word, and we thank everyone for your donations. We also, if you want to, as I said, learn how to help us with that, please go to the magicwordpodcast.com. There you'll find a tab that'll say join the Friends of the Magic Word, and you'll see a video of me as a much younger Scott Wells without a beard, appealing to you and letting you know what it is, why it is we need your financial support. Anyhow, thank you guys and gals for your help. And I, again, want to get back here to Lorenzo because Lorenzo and I have been friends for many, many years, back when he was still known as Larry Clark, and we worked together at the Magic Island back in Houston. Oh, golly, 1980s, I guess it was or so. Anyhow, we get into a little bit of that. But Lorenzo is working in Las Vegas, and right now he has been in Vegas before, but he's worked at a lot of cruise ships, of course, comedy clubs. He's been around for decades. He is just one funny guy. He really is, and full of a lot of stories. Over those years, you just can't live without having had these experiences. And he has so many that he wants to share with us in this week's episode. And it's a lot of fun and funny. And I think you will enjoy hearing him talk about some people who you know, some names perhaps that might be different or foreign to you. You may not know, but nonetheless, all really good. And also, again, telling you why he had changed his name from Larry Clark to Lorenzo Clark. And if you missed the episode with Rocco a few weeks ago, go back and take a listen to that. That was episode 691, and that was broadcast back in earlier July, around July 7th of this year, 2022. So you can go back and listen to that. It's not imperative that you do, but we were talking with both of these gentlemen, and we ended the chat with Rocco as Lorenzo had come in. And so this week we're going to pick up where we kind of left off, because I knew we had a good full hour of conversation there with Rocco, and now we have a good conversation here with Lorenzo, which I know you're going to be enjoying. So I'm going to step out of the way so you can hear our conversation this week with Lorenzo Clark here on The Magic Word. Welcome back to part two of our conversation. We left you last week in talking with Rocco Solano and with Lorenzo Clark, and we got both the guys back here just picking up where we left off. Hey, guys, how are you?
Yeah, hey.
Hello, Lorenzo. So,
it's Rocco.
Lorenzo.
All right.
So you guys, again, have been working together there. Now, did you know each other well before you started working together?
Yes, my first time at the Magic Castle when I was competing with Larry Wilson's Magic Entertainer of the Year award. There was one person who introduced himself to me, that was like the godfather of magic out there. He had full range of the Magic Castle. Introduced me to Goldfinger and Dove.
Yeah.
Introduced me to the Magic Castle. Bill Milt Larson. Bill Larson called him his grandson. So we made friends right away because we both have Italian heritage.
Yes.
And we just, just hit it off, and still we are. 40 years later,
Yeah.
we're still friends. So he's the one who introduced me.
I forget. So Larry Clark. So Larry Wilson had a contest.
Yes,
Or what was that deal? I
Magic
don't remember that.
Entertainer of the Year. Here's some of the acts that were competing.
At the castle?
No.
No, it took place. It was a tiered competition, talent competition. This is in the pre-Star Search era, or maybe leading up to Star Search era.
So it was televised.
No.
Oh.
This was live events. Basically, there was different rounds of competition, and the I think he wanted to make it. You could ask Larry about this, but I think maybe he had aspirations because he was doing television stuff at the time. So he may have shot the finals that I believe Scott Servine won. Pat Hazel was in that. Chris Hart, James Demare. Anyway, that was at the Improv, and that felt like a taping at evening at the Improv.
Wow.
So that might have been a pilot of some sort or something. But leading up to that were a series of performance nights at various venues around Los Angeles. So the Comedy Magic Club in Hermosa Beach. Wizards, I think in
Ice House,
right? The Ice House in Pasadena, Igby's Comedy Cabaret. I think the Comedy Store.
So
maybe
these
Laugh Factory.
things happen in all these different locations.
Yeah, mainly in comedy clubs. I don't think there was any in Magic Castle.
Was it public voted?
Right. So the people in the audience that night voted. And then
Some round robin. I mean, you get kicked out, and then you go up against somebody else the next
right,
week. If you won.
exactly. So it would be you would get points for coming in first, second, third, and then and I think you were guaranteed 4 performances. So you're performing in 4 different clubs for sure, and then your scores based upon that
Gotcha.
put you to I think a semifinal round, and that was I think at the Comedy Store, and then the finale, the final, was at the Improv.
Were you, Rocco, at that time comfortable with what you were doing as far as you were doing the sleeving and everything as far as what you're kind of doing now? Was that kind of the beginning when you were doing that?
Yeah, I was doing a rose act in the beginning.
Okay.
Sleeving the things that were able to be sleeved for the act streamers and snowstorms.
Yeah.
But I was doing a rose act with real roses to beautiful music, and you can see it on YouTube. You can see Rocco's Rose Act.
Yeah.
You can follow it on
And that was
YouTube.
when that developed back then?
1984. Yeah.
Okay.
Then a couple years later, that's when I went to Siegfried and Roy to the
Right.
Las Vegas seminar. But I worked it all out in California. Working the Magic Castle. Peter Pitt, after he saw me there, he hired me for 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and just fell in love with the Magic Castle.
Who ended up winning that contest, the Larry Wilson thing?
Scott Servine,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, when he was doing the Manipulation Act. So
I don't remember him doing a Manip act.
yeah, exactly. So yeah, he came out of the Magic
Yeah, I
Castle.
remember doing the Canes.
He came out of the
Yes.
Magic Castle Junior program. He would do a split cane, what would be a cane production with a scarf. So tie the scarf. James Demare does this routine where you tie the scarf and the cane appears, and then he'd pull the scarf off and then double the cane.
Right.
And then he put those into a chest. He had almost like a Richard Ross style kind of chest. And he put the canes in, and there'd be a little ball in the corner. He'd take that ball, it would change into a larger ball. And he would do a billiard ball routine, I think just a 4-ball routine. And then a 3-ring linking ring routine, and it was just perfection. It was really excellent, pure sleight of hand in the.
You mind if I go? I'm going to get a little something to eat. You guys
Yeah.
have a chat, all right?
That's fine.
Great.
Okay, we're going to
All
say,
right,
say goodbye to Rocco.
Rocco's
Got to leave
gonna-
the room.
Rocco's going to go make the pizza. He's going to make it a pizza over here. Yeah, by the way, here at Ahern, they have amazing food. There's great Chef Mark's Trattoria, and then Segrizzi's Pizzeria. That's his last name. Next door to that, that's on the lower level here at Ahern. And then on the upper level is the Italian Steakhouse with floor-to-ceiling windows of a view of the Strip. And it's really just amazing. We're the newest hotel in Las Vegas, the Ahern Hotel on Sahara, just west of the Strip.
And and I'm glad we're here. And thanks.
I'm going to clip that out, and I'm going to submit it to Aaron
thanks for the
radio
Aaron
advertisement
group also for letting us use the hotel as we're recording this then as well. So going back over there, I do remember Scott Servine and doing the act with all that, and of course he looked like Steve Martin. And I had worked with Scott Servine whenever he put the thing together in Houston that was the magic. Science of Magic at the Museum of Natural Science, and we ran that for like a year, and it was great. And I worked there regularly every day for about a year, and then I had John Carney came in for a month, and Christopher Hart came in. Anyhow, so I haven't seen Scott in a while. So what's he up to? Have you seen him lately?
Check with Scott on this, but the last time I saw him, he had inked a deal for a film project. He was making movies with a company I think that he had started or was partnered in, I think called Really Good Films or something like that, about positive messages and maybe faith-based programming to go to faith-based programming channels or something like that. So yeah, check with Scott, but he's making films.
Yeah, I hadn't seen him in the community for a while or conventions or doing anything.
Right. He's really gone. Well, he went from being a world champion magician, or at least the Magic Entertainer of the Year, and internationally recognized as a great magician, and then developed a comedy magic act, and really got into acting and wanted to pursue acting, and then I guess natural progression of that would be filmmaking, as so many people have endeavored.
Well, still, now going back a little bit in time, I want to talk with you about your name. Of course, I've known you when you were Larry Clark, and I noticed that Rocco would call you Larry from time to time as well.
Sure.
And you changed that to Lorenzo because there was another Larry Clark, I guess, in the business at SAG or something?
Yeah, so I did the Merv Griffin Show in 1986.
Well, you are dating yourself.
That's how old I am. I was on the Merv Griffin Show. So for younger people, at one point when nowadays we have dueling Jimmies in late night. In the old days, we used to have Johnny and Merv, and then of course that led to Jay and Dave, but before that it was Johnny and Merv. Merv created Wheel of Fortune and Jeopardy. He actually wrote the Jeopardy thinking song. You know,
he did.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he came out of the big band era, and I got to have dinner with his son Tony Griffin, who's a great guy, who's now reaping the benefits of all those things. And at one point, Tony was a model and an actor, and he did some good stuff. And his girlfriend, I think wife, was the Silver Bullet girl for Coors Light. And I used to do audience warm-up for Circus of the Stars, and they did a tightrope walking act.
Wow.
So, it's like showbiz is showbiz, we're all under this big circus tent,
What was that? That old joke about someone who was in the circus and he was cleaning up
after the elephants.
Yeah.
The guy who had started in the circus was a famous acrobat who then became a clown, and then when he couldn't do the acrobatics and everything anymore, he was the old guy who was cleaning up after the elephants picking up the dung with a shovel.
Yeah.
And the guy says, when are you going to quit this? He goes, what, and get out of showbiz?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
I haven't heard that in a long time. So going back to Larry Clark,
correct. So I was always Larry Clark growing up,
and also the picture still that was the Magic Island will forever be embedded was your promo shot with a Clark bar and your smile
with the Clark bar in my mouth, and I was Larry Clark. Kind of the California kid, and boy, when I did the Merv Griffin Show and I went to join the union, the American Federation of Television and Radio Artists. I think Merv was actually a SAG show, or I did a thing for Jake and the Fat Man at the time. I think that was SAG. Anyway, the point is, I went to join the unions, and they said, we already have a Larry Clark, who turns out is also a director who did the movie Another Day in Paradise with James Woods and Melanie Griffith, and he did the movie Kids and another movie Thrashers about skateboarders. Anyway, Larry Clark was already a known entity. So I thought, I'm going to be the Larry Clark. Okay, but before anybody ever did the real so and so or
Yes.
the, there's a comedian now, the Greg Brown, et cetera. I said I'm going to be the Larry Clark.
Yeah.
And at the time, my agents were Irvin Arthur, which was Barbra Streisand's first agent. So he was not a young man, and his wife used to do the contracts, and she was all confused. Is it the Larry Clark Show? No, it's just the Larry Clark. Your name is the? But it was also the. So there's that difference. Is it the Larry Clark or is it the Larry Clark?
Is it two E's or one E?
Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so one day I looked down on my bracelet here, and I have a gold ID bracelet on my wrist that I got from my grandparents at my christening. That was supposed to be given to me at my confirmation, which my parents wouldn't let me wear until my high school graduation. So,
Okay.
So
they knew you'd lose it.
and it says Lorenzo.
Wow.
Yeah. So,
that's where it came
my
from.
mother's Italian. She was a war bride. My dad was a World War II vet stationed in Italy at the end of World War II. They got married, moved to Hollywood in the 50s. So I really am half Italian.
Did you learn Italian as growing up as well?
Well, it's funny
like
because
Rocco did?
Rocco speaks fluent Italian, but with a bit of a Neapolitan accent, and I always say "Io conosco molto ma parla niente." So I know a lot. I understand everything. I don't speak it that well, although when you put me in a cab in Europe. Because I've also studied Spanish and German and a little bit of French, and doing cruise ships for 30 years. I sailed around the world for 30 years, so I can cabs in Europe. I can pretty much communicate with anybody because I know enough words in different languages.
Yeah, to get where you want to go
and to put them in sentences. So it's funny. I got some funny stories of going around the world and trying to put words together and communicate
Like what?
to people.
Give me one.
It's really a long story about getting lost in Venice on my 40th birthday.
Sounds like a movie, Lost in Venice.
Yeah, and I went to meet the singer from the show to have dinner, and then afterwards I was going to hook up with the musicians who were going to do a jam session at the Blue Note in Venice, which a lot of people don't even know exists or did exist. And
Is it affiliated with the one in New York?
I think just named after it.
Okay.
Yeah. But anyway, a little jazz bar
Yeah.
in Venice. So a couple bottles of wine after the dinner with the two singers, and they go back to the ship, and I go off my way to find the musicians that I'm rendezvousing with at the jazz bar. So let's say I finish with the singer friends about maybe 9 o'clock. Maybe we went in there about 7:30 or something, and about 9:30. And I'm supposed to meet up with these guys around 10 o'clock. So
Yeah.
plenty of time, although it's a different part of the city, but it should be no problem. And what I didn't understand was that in Venice, there's no lit up street signs. The name of the street is actually painted on the side of the building.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So I didn't have a flashlight. This is before cell phones.
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't have any way of making light. And I'm walking through the streets of Venice trying to follow the street sign, and I can't read it because of the shadows.
Yeah.
And I get lost, and the wine kicks in, and now I'm saying to people, "Tu aiuto me," and which means, "Can you help me?" And so yes, of course, people are very happy to do that, but they say one thing, and anyway.
Everybody's got different directions. Go this way.
Exactly.
No, don't listen to him. Go this way.
So I communicated to this one guy that I'm a magician on the cruise ship, and he says, "Oh, Sylvan." And I said, "Yes, like Sylvan." Okay, so we mentioned Sylvan's name. Before you know it, they got me in a gondola, and they take me over to the thing, and I get there just in time for the guys to finish their last set. So it's like,
Bummer.
yeah. But it was
Took a circuitous route around.
yeah, yes, but I got a tour of Venice, so it's like, at night, which is
Yeah.
unbelievably gorgeous.
Yeah,
If you're doing the gondola, do it in the daytime, but also do it at night.
For those of you who are not here with me, I have to say the story he just told me was told in perfect Italian style. I've not seen so many hand gestures Every
That's
finger
right.
and every,
I have my mother's hands, and my mother's eyes, and my mother's hair. So
your gestures and your shoulders and your eyes and everything. Yes, you told a story just with your body gestures. That is funny. Well, being called Larry Clark, let me ask, do you mind being called Larry anymore? Or people, I mean, like I know you as Larry, and I, again, heard Rocco call you Larry, but do you prefer to be called Lorenzo?
Yeah, I prefer to be Lorenzo,
Okay.
certainly professionally in any
Of
kind
course.
of professional capacity. But yeah, if we're just sitting around shooting the shinola, if someone calls me Larry, that's fine. It's particularly people that know me for a long time. If you knew me as Larry, call me Larry.
Well, the reason I ask about that, because, again, let's say with Max Maven as Phil Goldstein or with Banachek as Steve Shaw, people tend to think, okay, well, I'm on the inside because I can call him Phil or I can call him Steve because I knew him back then.
Right.
And Steve always feels like, or Steve, Banachek always feels like people who call me Steve really didn't know me, because it's like they're trying to show they're on the inside. And he said, I'd never say anything about that, but I'm his best friend, and I call him Banachek. I mean, I haven't called him Steve since I can't remember when.
Right.
And so that's why I'm asking from the standpoint that just like I've known Steve for probably as long as you, and I knew you as Larry, but we're getting reconnected then now as Lorenzo.
Sure.
And but I wouldn't want to be saying something and someone in the right situation or the wrong situation perhaps who might say, who is Larry? You were talking, his name's Lorenzo. They know you as Lorenzo.
Right.
So it's probably better that I would always call you Lorenzo.
Right. It's better, certainly for the sake of branding, or as you say, reintroduction. A lot of people knew me as Larry, and at a certain point, I was no longer Larry, but people knew me as Larry, and so whatever works for you,
You're fine with that.
works for me.
Okay.
Obviously, Lorenzo is the brand that we're pushing. So
Right.
So-
And so how long have you been then in Las Vegas?
Well, I started performing here. I would say I started coming here in '71 when they opened Circus.
Oh, man, I didn't know that.
Yeah, so my parents used to come in for vacation here and bring the kids, and especially starting in '70, I was 9 years old, and I remember coming to Circus and thinking it was the coolest thing in the world.
Of course.
And it was.
Yeah.
And I was recounting to Rocco coming here. I think it was '74. I was 12 and my sister was 15, something like that. And our parents let us stay in the room by ourselves, without having to be dropped off at a relative. So we also had relatives that lived in Boulder City who would babysit us when we were younger and come to Vegas. So I've been coming to Vegas my whole life. And I remember being here in a hotel room watching The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson when Steve Martin made his first appearance as Martin the Magic Marvel.
I don't remember that.
Yeah, so pre-Fly Dini,
Yeah.
he came out and did a comedy magic act where he produced a bouncing bunny out of a dove pan, and he had a rubber ball in the
Dove pan?
in the stuffed. Yeah, it was stuffed. A stuffed
Oh,
rabbit
in the rabbit,
stuffed rabbit in the dove pan load.
So it bounced the
right, and they produced a bouncing baby bunny, and he did the candle gag where he shakes it out. The same thing that Joel Hodgson used to do, where he'd make the candle disappear.
Yes. Yeah.
And then and he did that. He did a few comedy magic gags like that. Then he went over to the desk and he did his famous King of Hearts come down and dance. Have you ever seen him do that bit?
Yes, that's pretty funny.
Yeah.
It wasn't what I was expecting. Expecting a trick, but it was just a gag.
It was just a gag, exactly. And I remember seeing Steve Martin on the Tonight, and I'm in Las Vegas at the Sahara, just across the street from where we are right now.
Yeah.
Okay, and I remember as a kid watching Steve Martin, and it just happened to be in Las Vegas. So kind of Las Vegas is in my blood. I did the SAM convention here in 1983 with my Millionaire's Dream Act, which was a themed manipulation act in the style of Marvin Roy, and Marvin was certainly one of my mentors and teachers before Murray. and Murray's done a great job with the light bulbs and stuff, and really paying tribute to Marvin. It's a really wonderful thing. And Marvin and Carol were just great people to me. And so I had this act. It was a money and jewelry themed act that ended with a sub-trunk with a safe and a costume change where I come out in a gold lame outfit with rhinestones, and very Vegas-y. Yeah. And I debuted that. I debuted at the Castle and at the Magic Castle Awards banquet that year, and then I performed at the SAM here in '83, and then '85 we did Magic Olympics, which was a special for NHK TV in Tokyo that Shimada produced.
Yeah.
And Shimada just passed away, God rest his soul. and another great guy who meant so much. And then I think the next time I performed here was probably.
Did you do Dove Productions?
No, I didn't. I never did.
Okay.
I never did Birds in any of my shows.
He influenced me also because I did Doves and I studied him closely.
Yeah. Yeah,
But I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Yeah, right. I mean, he's such a great magician and a great guy, and
Yeah.
put me on 2 other NHK TV. So I did NHK TV 3 times. First time at the Magic Castle with my gangster act. I had a manipulation gangster act.
Was it a silent act?
Silent act, yeah. Silent manip theme act that I won first place.
Because NHK was broadcast in Japan.
Yes, that's NHK TV. Even you see NHK TV today
Yeah.
is out of Tokyo. So anyway, me in Vegas, I would say 87, I started doing comedy clubs here. So I did the Comedy Stop at the Trop. Then I think 88, 89, Catch a Rising Star. 90s, back to the Trop. Then the Riviera Comedy Club for Steve Sciarippa, who's now on Blue Bloods. He plays the muscle behind the DA.
Okay.
Steve Sciarippa. Shout out to Steve Sciarippa. God bless him. I can't believe he's gotten huge success as an actor.
Yeah.
But then he was just a pain in the butt club booker. But he was, because when you work comedy clubs as a magician, every time you try to bring in theatrical elements like music, okay. And especially back in those days. Nowadays, we have the Larry Pollock pods and stuff.
But you were considered really a prop comic back then, and they didn't like prop comics, I imagine.
Right. You
were not a purist.
There was certainly a poo-pooing of prop comics, but Vegas always liked prop comics because the cerebral stuff doesn't really play to people that are really partying and having a fun time. They want to see stuff.
Yeah, Mortzall and all those guys didn't play very well probably in Vegas back then.
Right, exactly. Yeah. So I get a call in my hotel room after the first night show, and he goes, "Hey, Clark, what's up with the tapes?" He goes, "You got like 6 tapes?" Because I had each individual cue on a cassette tape.
Yeah.
Okay, and they had to take out the tape, put the cassette. He goes, "Play on, play off. That's it." And that kind of became the standard. It's like Steve Sciarippa set the standard. It's like play on, play off. No ta-das. No sound effects. No Twilight Zone. No.
That must have been a different time back then when the comedy clubs were in their heyday. I was talking to John Ferrantino on a podcast some time ago, and we went into some detail about that because he had toured for a while with Crosby, Stills, and Nash, and all that, and he was, I think, at Woodstock and all that, which I said, that's amazing. I said, right now, there are 2 of us right now who have attended historical things. You've been to Woodstock, and I've seen the Beatles perform live, in St. Louis at Busch Stadium. And, I mean, those are 2 big pinnacle things in life that not many people can claim one or the other.
Yeah, right.
But anyhow, so what was that like back then? I mean, he was talking about George Carlin and other people and kind of how they were a band of brothers, basically.
Oh, yeah. I mean, comics, I got very fortunate and very lucky. I think I made my first appearance at the Ice House at 17, and I went out performing, headlining for them, I would say, right out of college, kind of 85. Certainly by the time, I think I middled for them a couple times. In the structure, comedy club act structure, the middle is the feature act. And then after I did the Merv Griffin show, I went right to headliner.
Headliner, right.
Yeah. So
that's 40 minutes, right?
45, 50, depending.
Okay.
Sometimes an hour, depending on the club. Obviously, if you're doing multiple shows in a night, then you want the first show to be really tight, 40, 45. And then the second show, they usually say, do whatever you want,
Which reminds me, hold your thought. Reminds me of one of my favorite jokes. I think Max Maven had talked about this, where a lady had come back to the dressing room and said, "I want to have your baby," and he said, "Which show did you see?"
Yeah.
Not everybody gets that.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Right. Exactly. Right. Yeah, it's a great story. But back in those days, it was Matt King, who was basically working Midwest for the Yoder gigs. And I was kind of jumping back and forth coast to coast. And then I got into the comedy zones, which were all over the South. So, although I did Spellbinders in Houston
I remember
a few times.
Yeah, I remember Spellbinders.
Yeah. But there was comedy zones, and Carrot Top was the king of the comedy zones because his manager was Brad Greenberg, who owned the comedy zones at the time. And they had 52 weeks worth of work. They were based out of Charlotte, North Carolina, and they had rooms going from I think Chesapeake Bay, Virginia, for the Air Force Base there or whatever, all the way down to the Florida Keys, and then from Bahamas all the way to the Mississippi, down in New Orleans, and down in the bayou down in Houma and Morgan City, and some of them are one nighters, and some of them you work the week or whatever. But I had such a great time working.
Not making a lot of money.
You know, Southern people are fun. I did miss some drinking.
Yeah. You didn't have long hair back then either, right?
No, I did, because I was doing a whole California surfer thing. It's like it's like that's why I've gone back to the long hair, which was basically based on the pandemic. You know, I do my show. I put on a few pounds, let my hair grow out. So just call me Flabio.
I thought that was one of the funniest lines. Very good. Very
yeah.
good.
So back in the late '80s, early '90s, I kind of developed this, based on my own persona of a Southern California kind of a beach guy. You know, kind of part Spicoli, you know, like, hi, bud, what's up?
Kind of like Steve Spill did with his drug thing.
His character. Yes. Spill was certainly, you know, he's a few years older than me, as he'll tell you. But yeah, we were all kind of in that same era of the you know, coming out of the late '70s, which was really when the sparks shut off and all those guys became stars and got TV shows.
Yeah.
You know. And then in the '80s, you know, Steve Spill, as I say, Matt King, Amazing Jonathan, myself, and Penn and Teller. I mean, they were billing themselves as a visual comedy act, and you know, different ways to get around the word magic, because it had kind of a Doug Henning kind of a feel to it. And
First time I saw them was at the L.A. stage when they were just breaking into, I guess, and they were called the Bad Boys of Magic.
I am Mofo, the psychic gorilla.
Yep, that was Teller's voice, and I wish I would have bought one of those T-shirts back then.
I know, right? Me too. Because I saw him there. I saw him at Dylan's, which was a club in Westwood, which they did before that. And then, of course, man, they just blew up and have done so well. It's amazing.
Man, that's for sure. But others, like Michael Finney. You know,
and Finney.
Yeah.
Finney
had his own Finney Bones.
Finney had Finney Bones in Phoenix, and he was the first club to headline me, I think. No, he was the first road club to feature me. Okay. And the headliner was Jeff Martyr, I remember, who did a few Tonight shows and is now a chiropractor.
Did you play in Finney Bone golf tournament?
No, I never did the Desert Classic.
Okay.
He extended the invite so many times, and it just didn't work out scheduling wise.
Because I did that, because then he had everybody who was there, basically who were his friends, and said, "Hey, come and do the open mic with everybody." So I didn't remember if you were there.
Yeah,
I did that.
I did work up to headliner at Finney Bones, and then both at the they used to be part of Gatsby's, Mardi Gras, and Finney Bones. The three clubs were together originally, and then they broke off, and he did his own club, the Finney Bones, at Days Inn, and I headlined there a couple times. So, and Michael, you know, so great to me, and because I started when I was a manipulation act, and Michael was already a comedy magician. You know, he's a couple years older than me, also. So I'm really kind of the next generation of the Steve Spills and
Kozak.
And Cozy's another one.
Cozy's great. I love that man.
Yeah, so I love all those guys, and you know, I got lucky because when I did the Merv Griffin show, I had. The talent coordinator and VP of the show was a guy called Les Sinclair.
Okay.
And I had come out of UCLA, Theater, Film, and Television School, and I worked for Copperfield, and then I transitioned to working for Bob Stivers' Circus of the Stars, and I was working for Bill and Milt Larson, and as Rocco said, I had the run of the castle. I had keys at the castle. I was, you know, I was an honorary Larson kid. So I wrote a letter to Les Sinclair, said, "Hey, I'm doing this show with Milt Larson at the Variety Arts Center, and Bob Stivers from Circus of the Stars, and John Schrum, the art director for The Tonight Show, are producing it, and would love for you to come down and take a look at the acts, and yada, yada, yada." And sure enough, he came down, he saw the show, he loved it, he booked every single act for the Merv Griffin show.
Wow.
So myself and Ken Sonkin, the Magic Mime, and the Brunson brothers played four-part harmony on the trumpet, Matt Plindle, the hula hoop artist, Johnny Fox, the sword swallower, and of course Harry Anderson came in and did the show.
Yeah.
Oh, and the Raspini brothers, the jugglers.
Yep.
Etc. And then I think four of those guys went on to do the Tonight Show as well.
Did you ever do the Carson show?
I never did the Carson show. I got to meet him a couple times. And
when he came into the castle, I guess?
I never met him at the castle. I saw him at the castle. The first time I met him, I was standing in his parking space. So
He pulled us. What are you doing there?
Right. So at NBC, in those days, if you remember, anybody who was there, the first stage was Studio One, and that was Bob Hope.
In Burbank.
Yeah, in Burbank. And the next stage was The Tonight Show. And Johnny Carson had the very first parking spot, which then became Jay Leno's spot, which was famous because they used to do bits out there, etc. But we'd come back from lunch from the commissary, from the famous NBC commissary.
Yeah.
And I was working on Peter Marshall's show with Dan Witkowski, Dan Chaz.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he was putting some allusions into that show. It was called Peter Marshall Fantasy.
I thought Peter Marshall was a game show host.
Yes, so he was the host of the show called Fantasy, which was kind of based. It was a modern version. We're talking mid '80s, early '80s actually. It was called Fantasy, which was like the updated version of Queen for a Day.
Okay.
So basically, take a person or
Someone who was in need.
Well, yeah, exactly. Someone who needs to have some excitement in their life, or a fantasy vacation, or
Sure. They've had a hard life.
Right, reuniting with old relatives, or some type of. So anyway, so in this case, I think Dan Chaz was hired to provide illusions. There would be some kind of a magic thing, and then someone would be produced and revealed. And anyway, so I was working on the show, and I'd come back from lunch, and I have to be standing talking to somebody. I'm standing in Johnny Carson's parking space without even thinking about it.
Yeah.
Okay. And all of a sudden I hear toot toot, and I'm like, oh. and here, like, Johnny wants to move his car into the spot. Oh, sorry, Mr. Carson. And he gets out of the car, and I go, I'm sorry, I was standing. He goes, don't worry about it, or whatever. And I walked with him from that spot up into the hallway there.
Did you chat as you were going?
Yeah, and we chatted the whole way, and we talked about magic and such. And I always said at that point, if I'd have said to Johnny, "Hey, can I come work for you?" What would he have said?
What could he say? Well, see my manager.
But no, or he might have said, "Yeah, go, put in an application or something, or
It sounds like a regret you have.
Well, if I have no regrets, but
that may
regrets
be one.
I've had a few, but then again, too few to mention. It's one of those things where I go, had I taken a different task, because I was already working behind the scenes and with those guys.
Yeah.
Had I gotten in and started working with Johnny, what would have happened?
Who knew?
I wouldn't have been a guy who toured the world for 30 years and headlined comedy clubs, and I'm now doing the Big Little Variety Show in Las Vegas.
So, where you are right now, the Alexis Park.
Right, at the Ahern Hotel. Yeah, right. The show is at Alexis Park,
right.
yes. Yeah.
So then you went from the comedy clubs to the cruise ships. Were you coming back and forth and doing the comedy clubs as well, or once you kind of finished that, you kissed them goodbye and just went to sea and never came back?
Right. So here's the way it worked for me. Is I was very fortunate.
Did Ron Wilson help book you on any of those?
No, actually, and I love Ronnie. Ron Wilson, one of the uncanny Scott. Here's a number 1 tube and a number 2 tube. So I love Ron, and he's the only act I ever saw at the Body Shop on Sunset, which was a burlesque theater. Now it's a titty bar. Can you say that on TV, or can you say it on the podcast? It's a gentleman's club. But at the time, it was a real burlesque theater, like the Crazy Horse, and they would hire magicians.
I know Lance Burton was working
Lance
there.
Performed there, and Norm Nielsen. I saw Shimada there. I saw Pendragon, Dirk Arthur.
Right.
I mean, all the great acts performed there. I got to perform there with my gangster act. I was 18 years old, and I got tipped. And I was like, did you ever see the movie What Women Want with Mel Gibson, where he shows him like growing up with the showgirls in the dressing room? It was like that was me, 18. I'm working the Body Shop with the burlesque queens of the time. It's like
I love showbiz.
I love show business. This is the magic. Hello.
Exactly.
Anyway, so
Ron Wilson and American Cruise Ships.
Right. So Ron was the only talking act that I ever saw perform at the Body Shop and kill.
Oh. Mm-hmm.
And kill.
He did some comedy.
Yeah. I saw a couple other guys try to do talking acts. At the time, I was too young to really address an adult audience.
Yes.
Because
you were not an adult.
I was a kid. Yeah, exactly. But I saw Ron and just kill an audience. Like, I was like, wow, that's entertainment. He entertained those people.
Yeah.
Okay. And of course, did great magic. He did, wonderful, wonderful tricks.
That's one of my favorite books, The Uncanny Scott.
Yeah.
I had I still do 2 or 3 things in my regular act that were from that book.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah. Ron Wilson was absolutely, I think, really unsung, or hasn't gotten the recognition in Magic that so many. There's so many great guys. I always think of the three British Isles. The Ron Wilson from Scotland, Terry Seabrook
From England.
Woo! Get down. Tell him nothing. Let him buy a program. All right.
Billy McComb.
Yeah, and Billy McComb from Ireland.
Yeah.
So Ireland, Scotland, and England, McComb and Seabrook and
Well, then there's Pat Page.
and
from
Ron Wilson.
Scotland Also,
Yeah, Pat Page, but Pat Page was never hanging around the Magic
That's
Castle.
true. You didn't know
Okay.
him like you did.
Right, exactly. Those 3 guys were around the Magic Castle. Even though Terry Seabrook still lived in England, he
came a lot.
He came out to the castle 3-4 times a year,
Yeah.
and stayed at the Magic Castle Hotel.
Yep.
And he was at the castle
Seabrook suite.
morning, noon, and night.
Yeah.
Morning, noon, and night at the bar, bucket of scotch.
Yeah. He stayed in my home so many times. I've got so many good stories about him. Like kids were calling him Uncle Terry or
Yeah.
Uncle Terrence.
Yeah, I used to, I did linking rings in the show today,
Yep,
right?
yep.
And
Whit
he
Hayden's
used to do
routine.
Elephant's wedding rings. He used to
Yep.
do Elephant's wedding rings on the Sunday brunch shows. Okay, instead of doing his regular act, the Burn Bill act or any of that, he'd get a kid and he'd do Elephant wedding rings. And I do Whit Hayden's routine, the 4-ring linking ring routine, but I throw in a couple of the Seabrook lines there when I'm trying to do more of a family type show or
do
something.
the same thing.
Yeah, and so it was always such a pleasure for me because I remember the point when Terry would say to me, he goes, stop bringing the rings. I know you got them, right? He goes, bring the rings down. He goes, I don't want to carry my suitcase.
Extra weight.
Yeah, exactly. Bring the rings. So I would literally, every time I was doing the Sunday brunch, I'd come and bring him my rings and let him do the rings. Yeah.
We're going to get to cruise ships in a minute, but I want to go back while we're at the castle right now with this conversation because you knew Vernon, and you do a pretty good little Vernon impression as well. So
I don't
Tell
know
me a
why.
story.
Why do you try to be funny? You're not funny. You're not the least bit funny. No, I remember. Yes, Vernon was at my Magic Castle Junior audition. Okay, and of course
you were not part of the Long Beach Mystics. Though,
I was
right?
not. I was not a mystic. Although I went to some of their shows and we had a lot of friends in common, and
Sure.
of course a lot of the mystics became junior magicians
Right.
at the castle, etc. But I was not part of that program, and they let me know it all the time.
So-
Okay, just letting you know. But I'm an honorary Larson, so you know.
Okay.
Put
You
that
hang
in
out of
your, put
Brookledge.
that in your magazine.
You got to go to
Right.
Brookledge.
Yeah, right, exactly. Yeah, I have got Brookledge stories that I will never tell. Okay, no, no, they drained the pool. None of that's true. Okay, all right, yeah.
So with Vernon, you were saying.
Vernon, of course, the greatest, and he was. You know, they always said the center of magic is wherever Vernon was, right? So,
Yeah,
so
center of the
and
universe.
Vernon was the Magic Castle. Well, of course, Irene was the Magic Castle, and the Larson brothers.
She was
but
the queen,
Vernon, but Vernon was the magic, and just to
People came to see the Pope there.
just to be in his presence and to hear the stories and of course the more he got a few scoops in him, you know, what are you talking to? Why are these people trying to do that? You need to work on your character. You need to find your fort. You know, he would never say forte, okay, because that's a French word. It's a fort, a man's fort. All right, Professor. So I remember the FISM when everybody went to Luzon when Lance won the
Grand Prix.
the Grand Prix, and I think John Carney competed and Daryl Martinez, Michael Amar. And I remember walking down the steps of the and of course, as I said, Vernon had been in my junior audition. He was always very nice to me, very complimentary, etc. But I'd never really sat down and talked with him until I'm going to be 20, right? So I knew him at 15. I auditioned at 15. So 5 years I knew him and he interacted with me, but I never got to sit down and have that heart-to-heart talk with him till I remember I'm walking down the steps at the castle, okay, and I walk over to Vernon and I go, "Oh, Professor," and he goes, "Why aren't you going to FISM?" And I go, well, he goes, "You're just as good as those guys, as Daryl and Amar, and why aren't you competing?" And I go, "Well, I'm I go, first of all, I'm already working.
Yeah. What am I going to get out of it? Yeah.
Yeah, I was working that night. I used to do the restaurants with Jason Randall. He used to book RJ's The Rib Joint in Beverly Hills, Gladstone for Fish in Malibu, and the Jetty in Santa Monica, and Adam's Rib in the Valley. So Paul Green used to work Adam's Rib all the time. But Whit Hayden, Joel Bauer, Wayne Stevens, Wayne Hershey, there was different guys that were all part of this Jason Randall crew of magicians. And I was the youngest, once again. and I said, I'm already working. I said, and I won 2 trophies at at SAM convention in 1980, right? Mm-hmm. I said, I won 2 trophies. I go, they didn't get me any work. I said, I
can sell it and make some money.
Yeah, I go, is the competition really that important, or is it? He goes, no, you just gotta, you're working. Tell me what you're doing, and whatever. And we sat down, and he goes, show me something. And I did a top change. He goes, no, the hands must cross. He goes, the hands must cross. And so that was the moment when I started to really understand the finer points of sleight of hand and really listened to Vernon from that perspective. Mm-hmm. Okay? And I really tried to implement that into a lot of what I do. I love talking about the stories and him calling people out and him berating people and all the things that you can never get away with today.
Yeah. But he could and did.
But he could and did, and it was so fun, and it was so fun to be in his presence and just to hear him talk. There's just you gotta. She's a good-looking woman. And then he would go off on a whole other track. It's like, so in that sense, he was like your old grandfather, where it was like,
Where's he going with this?
Yeah, right, exactly. But before you know it, he's talking about something that really shouldn't be discussed in public. So, he was, and of course, talking about magic and cutting silhouettes and doing the Harlequin act and where he worked the Harlequin act and the Hollywood and the steamliners and
right.
All the different places and stuff and I really followed his footsteps in that sense. I did the high end Hollywood parties and the cruise ships and the clubs and here I am in Vegas at the Big Little Variety Show.
And he encouraged you to do that.
You did, yes.
So you went on then on cruise ships. You said for 30 years. That just
right. So in answer to your question, I was going to get to this. Yeah. So I wrote the letter that got me onto the Merv Griffin show. So I made the original contact. So there was no agent involved with that.
Okay.
But it was still a union gig. So the union gig was scale plus 10% to an agent. Now I did have an agent for commercial work for film, television, and commercials, an acting agent. Mm-hmm. Okay, so I put down the name of my acting agent as my agent because it let them get 10%, right? That way they're getting money. Right. Maybe they'll put me out more for other things, etc. Sure. So everybody's happy, right? Yeah. So the original VP of Entertainment for Princess Cruises, a guy called Brian Langston Carter, he saw me on the Merv Griffin show, and he said, get me that guy. So he said that to his assistant, who was the director of entertainment, a guy called Martin Hall, who became one of my best friends and is still one of the greatest guys in the world, amazingly talented, wonderful man, retired from cruise ships, but he's got a performance space in downtown L.A. with his wife and beautiful daughters. And anyway, he's a great guy. But at the time, I didn't know him. He didn't know me. All he knows is his boss told him to find me.
Okay.
So he calls the Merv Griffin show. The Merv Griffin show gives me the name of my agent that's listed on my contract. Okay. Who is a theatrical and commercial agent. So he calls them and they go, cruise ship, we're going to get back to you. They hang up. My agent, Beth, calls me up. She goes, some guy wants to book you for a cruise ship. Because we don't really handle that. You want to just call him? I'm like, okay.
Yeah.
So now I'm calling him back, okay? Rather than me making a cold call, they called me, right?
That's funny.
Exactly. So he goes, hey, do you want to do a cruise ship? And this is 1986, okay, in fall of 86.
What line?
Princess, okay? And he says, do you want to do a cruise ship? And I go, not really. I go, isn't it like old people and their parents? I heard the jokes already.
Sure.
It was like, he goes, I think you'll have a good time. I go, I tell you what, I'm working the castle this week, because I remember I was in the parlor, okay? I said, why don't you come down, see the show, and we'll talk about it.
Yeah.
And we did. And we had a great time. We hit it off. We became fast friends. So in January of 1987, I did 5 weeks in the Caribbean.
Wow.
Or is it the Caribbean? I think they're right next to each other. Anyway, so
Sounds like something Vernon would
yeah, right, yeah.
pronounce one way, not the
Yeah,
other.
yeah, right, yeah. You put the emphasis on the wrong syllable.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did 5 weeks on a Caribbean cruise, leaving out of San Juan, Puerto Rico, and hitting 6 ports in 7 days. Barbados.
And did they drop you off, and then the next ship would pick you up? Or
No.
Okay.
No. In those days, you were a guest of the cruise for that cruise, and you were obligated to do however many contracted
Start to finish,
shows
all the way.
But you were passenger all the way. You were
And they give you passenger status? I assume,
passenger
back
status, passenger cabin, the whole thing.
Right.
You got on,
Right.
and you were a passenger, and it was really great. I fell in love with it. It was like
You start thinking, where's this been all my life? Why have I been working my butt off?
Well,
over
no,
here
I
at
mean,
these
I
comedy
watched The Love Boat on TV,
Yeah.
and Princess Cruises was The Love Boat. So, I mean,
Yeah.
it was really an amazing experience, and seeing the Caribbean. I grew up in Southern California. We got beautiful blue Pacific. I never saw clear, see-through turquoise water with 50 feet of 50 feet of visibility or 100 feet of visibility. I mean,
Yeah.
it's like anyway, I became a scuba diver. I ended up loving the Caribbean. So I'd already had things on the books, 87 comedy clubs, et cetera, et cetera. I think I did maybe another 2 weeks in Alaska that year in 87. And then 88, I think I only did, again, maybe 2 weeks in Mexico and 2 weeks again 6 months later. Because I was booked doing comedy clubs and doing other stuff in Hollywood, et cetera. So I was really doing cruises, kind of like paid vacations.
Yeah.
Okay. And it wasn't until, I would say, I did a couple review shows also. I did a review show, Valley Forge, Pennsylvania, for Greg Thompson Productions at the Lily Langtry Theater, big 500-seat theater there. Also, they had a show down in the Bahamas. I worked there. I lived there for 6 months on the Grand Bahama Island. Became a big scuba diver there. That's a whole other thing to go into. Anyway, so it really wasn't till the comedy clubs kind of died out in the 90s, kind of 94, 95. I think my last official comedy club.
They were on the wane then.
Yeah, exactly. And I started, I'd always been doing some cruises, but I think 94 is when I started taking longer contracts. I took like a 4-month, like the entire Mediterranean season for the summer, okay? And then took a month off and did like another 4-month contract. So I started doing longer contracts. Then I went back.
And were you doing mainly comedy, or were you doing prop comics stuff?
Yeah, I was doing when I was originally booked on. I was booked on as a comedy magician.
Okay.
Okay, and I had 5 cases, and it was a lot.
Yeah.
And by the time I would say 1990, I was already a prop comic. I was doing 2 or 3 magic things, and it was mostly jokes and gags.
You're
and,
Carrot Top of the Seas.
Yeah, right. Yeah, really. Yeah, in a lot of ways, absolutely. So, and then I got to the point where I did, I think maybe coming back to the cruise ships after the comedy club, so maybe 94, 95, 96, something like that, I was doing straight stand-up on the cruise ship. So I was booked as the comedian, even though I might do paper balls over the head or...
You didn't have anything to carry on.
Correct.
Big difference.
Yeah, and I got to work with Chip Romero and Gaetano and some other illusionist guys. So it was fun to have another magician to hang out with. James Michael, who's now the redneck magician. So I got to work with those guys as a straight stand-up, even though I was.
I can't imagine which of the two of you would talk more, whether you or Chip. If I had the two, I'd say.
I brought Chip out of his shell. We did a show at the Magic Castle. He was being booked by Ron Wilson.
Yeah.
And we did a show with Rhonda, his first wife.
Yep. I remember
And I'd worked with them as illusionists, and we coordinated with Ron Wilson, and we did a show at the Magic Castle where we actually printed programs, and we made a show called Ships That Pass in the Night with me and Chip. And I think that was his first week performing at the Magic Castle, and it was I think he really kind of came out of his shell that week because he was really focused on illusion and this and whatever. And I think after seeing me work so much comedy into what I was doing, etc.
Well, see, he was patterning his life after Doug Henning, I'm sure, just like we were talking earlier, as far as artists and everything, trying to do something, and particularly with him, he hadn't found his voice yet. He was still
correct.
Trying to emulate what he saw his hero of Doug Henning doing.
Yeah. But Chip and I would have great times watching videos of it because they had every magician magic special, et cetera. And of course, I'd worked for Copperfield and some of his specials and stuff, So it was okay. Take a look at this and tell me if you think you can know how this is done or whatever, And anyway, we had a ball bonding as magicians. So that's when I was kind of like going like, hey, it's more fun to be on ships if you got someone to hang out with. Yeah,
sure.
Et cetera. And that's why I'm really so friends with so many great stand-ups or musicians. I really try to pattern my show after nightclub entertainers, Wayne Newton or Frank Sinatra, et cetera, where I had the band behind me and musical gags and stuff with the band. And at one point I was doing kind of like an egg beater card trick, but where the band...
the mind reading thing?
Yeah, but the band... Yeah, not necessarily not with a blender, but the idea of that, where projecting the thoughts from the person, and then have the band have music sheet, and then they turn it around, and on this, it says a 6, and then this says a C, and then this is a L, and this is a U, B, S, so they can pick up their music sheet, and then what card are you thinking of? And then everybody holds it up the band, and it says 6 of clubs, and the whole audience says 6 of clubs, Anyway. So and other bits of business and musical stuff with the band and stuff. So I really got to expand from being a typical magic act or being a straight stand-up to being really a vaudeville entertainer, working with the augmentations of show business that existed in whatever venue I was performing in.
Did you ever work with Ricky Dunn?
Yes, many times. And even on ships with Ricky Dunn, when we would on Royal Caribbean, they used to book 3 or 4 different variety acts, and they really only wanted you to do one night. And I remember working with Ricky 3 or 4 times on the Viking Serenade, which was formerly the it became the Viking Serenade from the Admiral Cruise Line Star Dancer. It was originally the Star Dancer ship out of Los Angeles, and then it became the Viking Serenade. And I worked with Ricky a couple different times, but I worked with him club dates and stuff. He was really, in my opinion, the best nightclub act.
Right. From the old school, too.
From the old school, yeah. I certainly emulate his style when I do my pickpocketing or when I'm performing, trying to warm up a crowd. Probably what you saw me do a little bit today, where I'm like, hey, I don't dance. It's like, these are the jokes, folks. So you used to go, let me tell you how to enjoy this act. Keep your standards low. And then what I loved about Ricky always, when he do the pickpocketing, and at the end they played the music, da 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 da, but and he start pulling out the wallets, the watches, the necktie, the belt, everything. He's got it all in his hands. And he looks at the audience, and goes, "Worst night I ever had." Oh, I used to love that. And then he'd give all the stuff back, and then he'd bring the guy over, and then it'd be like an encore thing. So it's like just when you think it's over, it's like, no, there's more. Yeah. And then he'd put the bib on the guy and do the drinking of the wine thing where it'd come out of his nose or this, that, whatever. And then I remember seeing him do the shirt pull.
I never saw him do the shirt gag.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So obviously if he didn't have time to set it up or this or that or whatever, but I remember doing a gig with him, and the first time I think that I saw him do it live, and I remember going to the bathroom and the guy's putting the shirt back on, and I was like, that was amazing. I go, did you prearrange that? Because I didn't know at the time. I wasn't sure, right? I think I was maybe 18 or something when I first saw him do it. Okay. And the guy's like, no, I was sitting there. It was perfect stooge. The guy was a perfect stooge, going like, no, I had no idea. I was just wearing my shirt. I got up on stage. The guy pulled it off my back. And I was like, going, that's a good key to make sure that your stooges will keep the secret.
So after 30 years, did you finally get to the point, kind of like what Chip did? I've been there, done that, and ready to kind of come back and settle down on land.
Yeah, put some dry legs down. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you decided to do that here in Vegas.
Yes.
Okay. And so that's great. So what's your long-term plan from here?
Long term.
Okay. Let's say 5 years.
How much time we got left?
Well, you keep saying you're young. This guy's older than me. Remember, I'm younger.
Yeah. That's true though.
You keep saying that.
They do say that. They say that 50 is the new 70. So I think that makes me the new 80. No, the new if 50 is the new 30. So I'm the new 40 now. I'm turning 60 this year. So it's like it's funny. The performing keeps you young.
True enough.
And I'm having a blast performing and growing my hair out and pretending like I'm doing comedy clubs again. And on the cruise ships, it's particularly the high end cruises, the Crystals, the Silver Seas, the Seabourn. I had a great time on Seabourn, and it's 5-star cruising. And this is back when I was still drinking a lot. And and I remember doing a Seabourn cruise, and they only had me on one night. I was on for 10 days, and I was performing one night, and it was in the middle of the cruise. So like the first couple nights, I just walked around at this, that, whatever. Then the third night, I stumbled in the piano bar, and here was a retired judge and a retired cardiologist, and they said, "Can we buy you a martini?" And I became like drinking buddies with these guys for the rest of the cruise. And it was like such a great education, two men who had lived a really great life and hearing about legal stories and hearing about medical stories.
Completely outside of the world of entertainment.
Right. Completely outside of anything, show busy.
Yeah.
Okay. But just fascinating men, et cetera, et cetera. And you just go like, man, I'm really grateful for this gig. I mean, magic really does. It just opens up all the doors and brings people in and
it does. Well, as done with you, I mean, it's allowed you to tour the world and to meet a lot of interesting people like that and share your magic and laughter and fun and entertainment with everybody. And people are now coming to see you here in Vegas then as well. Well, the name of my podcast is called The Magic Word. So as we start to wrap up over here, what is it that's your philosophy of life? What is it that makes you want to get up every day? What's important in your life? What's your philosophy?
My philosophy is enjoy, be happy, create happiness.
Create happiness.
Create happiness, manifest destiny, create love, joy, happiness. I mean, it's really, what are we trying to do for other people? We're trying to make other people feel good, make other people joyful, make other people happy
in their lives.
Yeah. I mean, the more you give, the more you get. Goes around, comes around.
Yeah.
It's there's an energy to it, and the power of positivity is something that I go back a long time with the NLP guys, but before that, my dad had a book on the shelf.
Earl Nightingale.
Yeah, the power of positive thinking.
Sure.
Okay, and I remember reading that, and I mean, and it really goes with what Rocco's talking about with his faith and the understanding that there's got to be something that is powering this whole thing, and there's a positive force and there's a negative force. It's like Jack Goldfinger used to say,
There's two wolves in your head. There's a good wolf and a bad wolf. Which one you want to feed?
Yeah. So a lot of my philosophy comes from Jack Goldfinger, who is one of my great teachers.
He drops so many gems every time he speaks.
Dove is the moon, and I'm the sun. And the moon has no light of its own. It reflects the light of the sun. We are one in the universe. In Los Angeles, California, there's a place called the Body Shop. And 5 times a night, the young ladies come out onto the stage and take off everything but their makeup. That's a joke.
I worked with him so many times, and I love Jack so dearly, and Dove, and they've really shown so much love, etc. But he was really one of the greatest acts I've ever worked with in my life. I remember doing a thing in Beverly Hills. There was an underground, not underground in the sense of illegal, but underground in the sense you really had to go down the steps
physically.
Yeah, on Canning Drive there in Beverly Hills, and I'd booked this out. And it was a promotional party thing because I was trying to show the club owners the type of entertainment that I could bring in there, et cetera, do dance floor magic in the middle of the thing, et cetera, et cetera. And I had Jack and Dove, and that was, man, they just brought the disco to the 90s and lit the place up, et cetera, et cetera. And I go, now there aren't a lot of magic acts that could do that. Okay,
but this is the guy. Yeah.
But
Jack and Dove are the Shizzle.
That's a fact. Well, listen, you've been wonderful. Thank you very much. I mean, as you listeners can tell, we could probably go on for much longer. You have a lot of stories that you've lived throughout your life, and they've been delightful, the ones you've shared. So thank
I
you
even
very
have
much.
some with the great Tom Sony.
Yeah, no, I've been so fortunate to have the greatest teachers in magic, and truly feel honored to take the stage and get to do this.
Yeah.
You know, it's
You're honoring those who've gone before by doing that.
absolutely, and it truly is a blessing, and I am truly grateful, and I appreciate you guys listening.
Thank you very much for talking. I appreciate that. So,
Thank you, Scott, for having me.
for the Magic Word Podcast. That was Lorenzo Clark. This is Scotty out.
LorenzoClark.com.
That was a lot of fun. Wow, I really enjoyed that. And I guess I should have mentioned at the beginning of this, it sounds like this was an episode also brought to you by the Ahern Hotel, which was a very fine hotel. And I want to thank the proprietors and the owner. We got to meet the owner there of letting us use one of the rooms to record these podcasts. That is the episode with Rocco as well as the one here with Lorenzo. So a lot of fun. And I hope you enjoyed that as much as I enjoyed presenting this to you. So I look forward to every time I get a chance to visit with Lorenzo. Funny guy, funny guy. And also, I want to remind you, if you have not subscribed to the pod letter, if you go to the magicwordpodcast.com, there you'll find a tab, or it might be a pop-up that'll come up to say subscribe to the pod letter. It's not going to be invasive. We're only sending these out once a week and letting you know who it is that's going to be on from week to week, or that particular week, and also who might be from the archives in the past that you may have missed, some suggestions that are good ones. Like this week, if you are a subscriber to the pod letter, there will be a link there to going back and hearing that episode with Rocco. So all you have to do is just click on that, and you can go back and hear that. Anyhow, this has been great. I look forward to talking with you again next week. We're going to return to a few convention reports next week. I'm going to be going to Baltimore, Maryland, where I'll be attending Poe's Magic Conference. And if you go to posmagicconference.com, you can find out more information and register if you are interested or in the area, because it's going to be fun. It is going to be featuring Jeff McBride, is talking about storytelling and improving your presentations. It should be just a lot of fun. So hope that you can join us there. If you do attend, then please be sure to say hello. And whether or not you attend, I'll be posting daily updates, so this way you feel as if that you're there, even if you're not. And if you are there, again, you can kind of perhaps hear some conversations with some people that you may have missed. So until next week, stay well, get booked, and enjoy, be happy, create happiness, and create love, because the more you give back, the more you get. This is Scotty out.